The doors to the Grand Assembly Chamber opened for the first time in 4,000 years, and every being in the galaxy's most powerful governing body turned to watch. Ambassador Marcus Webb stepped through the threshold, his footsteps echoing across the polished obsidian floor. The chamber was enormous, built to accommodate representatives from 200 different species. Crystalline beings that towered 3 meters tall stood alongside floating consciousness clouds. Insectoid delegates clicked their mandibles nervously. Ancient energy forms dimmed and flickered. Marcus wore a simple gray suit. No weapons. No armor. No delegation behind him. Just one human walking into a room designed to make visitors feel insignificant. It worked on everyone, except him. Arch-Mediator Krelva, a massive reptilian being who had presided over the council for 3 centuries, gripped his ceremonial staff with enough force to crack the metal. His voice boomed across the chamber, amplified by technology older than human civilization. This is impossible. The barrier has held for 43 centuries. The probability of failure was calculated at less than 0.001% for another 43 millennia. Marcus smiled. The expression sent visible ripples of unease through the assembled delegates. Probability isn't destiny, Arch-Mediator. You should know that better than anyone. Counselor Tavara of the Velthari Dominion rose from her crystalline seat. Her species lived for thousands of years, and she was old enough to remember the stories. The Forbidden Ones. Human, you stand in violation of Galactic Law 372. The quarantine seal placed upon your world was unanimous. Every civilization in this chamber agreed that humanity was too dangerous to join galactic society. Dangerous? Marcus repeated, as if tasting the word. He reached into his jacket pocket. 50 weapon systems locked onto him instantly. He pulled out a small black cube covered in symbols that made several delegates recoil in their seats. I believe this belongs to you. He placed it on the central podium. The chamber erupted. Accusations flew in 17 different languages simultaneously. The Questrom Collective, a hive mind spanning billions of individuals, spoke as one voice through their representative. That is a barrier anchor. There were 12 placed in your solar system. How did you acquire it? Marcus looked at the cube. We found it in our asteroid belt during a mining operation. Took us about 300 years to figure out what it was. Another 200 to understand how it worked. He paused. And another 500 to turn it off. The silence that followed was absolute. Krelva's scales shifted from deep blue to pale white, a sign of extreme distress in his species. You didn't break through the barrier. You dismantled it from the inside. We're quite good at reverse engineering, Marcus said. It's what humans do best. You give us a puzzle, we solve it. You give us a wall, we find a way through it. You give us 4,000 years of isolation. And we use every single day to make sure that when we finally meet you again, we're ready. We got a delegate from the Luminae. Beings of pure energy that existed since before most species achieved sentience, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Why reveal yourself now? You could have remained hidden, watched us, learned more. Marcus nodded, as if appreciating the question. Because 3 weeks ago, something changed. Your deep space monitoring stations detected an anomaly at the edge of the galaxy. You've been mobilizing military fleets, implementing evacuation protocols for the Outer Rim territories. You've kept it classified, but your communications aren't as secure as you think they are. The chamber went deadly quiet. The Harvesters, whispered a delegate from the Korthon Empire, his 4 eyes widening. How do you know about the Harvesters? We've been monitoring your transmissions for 2,000 years, Marcus said calmly. Every encrypted message, every classified briefing, every desperate plan you've tried to keep secret. He looked around the chamber, meeting hundreds of eyes without flinching. You detected them 3 months ago. Automated war machines consuming everything in their path. 17 inhabited systems gone. Every military force you've sent has been destroyed. And you've been preparing to abandon the outer territories to save the core worlds. Krelva slammed his staff against the floor. The sound was like thunder. You have been spying on the Galactic Council for 2 millennia, and you choose now to reveal this? During our darkest hour, Not spying, Marcus corrected. Observing. There's a difference. And yes, we chose now because now you need us. Need you? Tavares' crystalline form pulsed with anger. We locked your species away because you were a threat to galactic stability. The records show what humanity did to the Viridian Empire. You dismantled an entire civilization in less than a solar year without firing a single shot. You stripped them of their technology, their weapons, their ability to ever threaten anyone again. You made them irrelevant. They tried to exterminate us first, Marcus said quietly. We simply made sure they couldn't try again. We didn't kill anyone. We didn't take their worlds. We just made it impossible for them to wage war. Is that worse than what you're planning to do to billions of civilians in the Outer Rim? Abandoning them to save yourselves. The accusation hung in the air. Several delegates looked away. The barrier wasn't keeping us in, Marcus continued. Not for the last 1,000 years, anyway. We could have left whenever we wanted. We stayed because we were preparing for this moment. For when the galaxy faced something it couldn't handle alone. And you believe humanity can handle what we cannot? Krelva's voice dripped with skepticism. Marcus pulled out a data tablet and placed it next to the black cube. This contains our analysis of the harvester technology, their movement patterns, their communication protocols. And our solution? Questrom technicians scuttled forward, retrieved the tablet with trembling appendages, and connected it to the Council's main systems. Data flooded across holographic displays, complex mathematical equations, three-dimensional models of harvester ships, and something else. This is ... The technician's voice failed. This is their command language. You decrypted their core programming. In 3 days, Marcus confirmed. Took us another 4 to find the override codes. Krelva stood frozen. Override codes. The harvesters aren't invaders, Marcus said. They're tools. Ancient ones. Yes. Sophisticated ones. Absolutely. But tools nonetheless. And tools follow commands if you know how to speak their language. He looked around the chamber. We do. Tavares' crystalline form pulsed rapidly, a sign of racing thoughts. If you can control the harvesters, then humanity has leverage. You're not here to help. You're here to negotiate terms. Smart, Marcus acknowledged. Yes, we're here to negotiate. But not for what you think. We don't want your territory. We don't want your resources. We want one thing only, recognition. Full council membership. Voting rights. The ability to participate in galactic affairs as equals, not as prisoners or experiments. And if we refuse? Asked a delegate from the Theron Syndicate. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then we go home. Seal ourselves back up. And when the harvesters finish with the Outer Rim and come for the core worlds, you'll face them alone. He paused. Of course, we'll survive. We have the codes. But I wonder if you will. The delegates began arguing immediately. Some demanded humanity share the override codes unconditionally. Others insisted this was blackmail. A few called for military action against Earth, despite the obvious futility. Krelva raised his staff for silence. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. The council requires time to deliberate. You will be provided quarters, and no, Marcus interrupted. You have 1 hour. Because the harvesters aren't the real problem. He activated a holographic display that showed deep space beyond the galactic rim. This is what our long-range sensors detected 6 hours ago. The harvesters were running from something, and that something just arrived. The hologram showed a massive tear in space-time, and shapes emerging from it. Ships, enormous vessels that made the harvester swarm look like insects. What are those? Tavara whispered. Marcus looked at the gathered delegates with an expression that might have been pity. That's why we really came back. The harvesters were just the opening act. What you're seeing is the main event. Every alarm in the council chamber began screaming at once. The sealed archives had not been opened in 3,000 years. Counselor Tavara stood before the massive vault door. her crystalline hands trembling as she entered the access codes passed down through only the oldest members of the council. These were secrets meant to stay buried. Truths too dangerous for common knowledge. Marcus Webb stood behind her, flanked by Arch-Mediator Krelva and representatives from the 12 major galactic powers. The emergency session had lasted 18 hours. Arguments had raged. Threats had been made. But in the end, fear had won. The massive ships emerging from the spatial rift showed no signs of slowing, and the harvesters had changed course, fleeing in the opposite direction from the newcomers. The galaxy needed answers, and those answers were locked in a vault that predated most current civilizations. The door opened with a sound like grinding continents. Cool air rushed out, carrying the smell of preserved data crystals and ancient technology. The chamber beyond was vast, filled with row upon row of archival storage. Holographic indexes floated in the air, cataloging illions of classified documents. Tevara's voice was steady despite her fear. The public records state that humanity was discovered in the year 2847 before Common Era. First contact was made. Initial assessments deemed humans primitive but promising. Then, 3 solar years later, the decision was made to seal Earth away. The official reason given was that humanity showed excessive territorial aggression and posed a risk to galactic stability. She pulled up a holographic display. This is the official record. It has been taught in every academy, referenced in every historical text, and used to justify the barrier for over 4,000 years. Marcus watched without expression. And the truth? Tevara manipulated the holographic controls. New files appeared, marked with security classifications so high that most delegates had never even heard of them. The truth is that first contact occurred in 3200 before Common Era. 400 years earlier than publicly acknowledged, the first document materialized. It was a mission report from the Viridian Empire, written in a language so ancient that the translation software struggled. Marcus read it aloud. Sol 3 species shows remarkable adaptability. Initial scans suggest pre-industrial development, but evidence of rapid technological advancement. Recommend standard integration protocols. Species designated as candidate 7749 for galactic citizenship. They were going to welcome us, Marcus said quietly. Tevara pulled up another file. The Viridian Empire was the dominant power in this sector. They controlled over 3,000 star systems. Their technology was considered the most advanced in the known galaxy. They sent a full diplomatic mission to Earth. 12 ships, their best scientists, their most skilled negotiators. 6 months later, the Viridian Empire ceased to exist as a spacefaring civilization. A Questrom delegate made a sound like grinding metal. Impossible. The Viridians had planetary defense grids, military fleets numbering in the thousands, weapons capable of cracking planets. How could a pre-industrial species? We weren't pre-industrial when they arrived, Marcus interrupted. We were just good at hiding it. Humans had already developed nuclear technology, primitive spaceflight, computer systems. We saw the Viridian ships land and made a choice. We played primitive. We watched. We learned. Tevara activated a video file. The holographic recording showed a Viridian command center. Officers rushed between stations, their faces contorted in panic. The audio was distorted but understandable. All outer colonies report simultaneous system failures. Defense grids are offline. Communications are being rerouted. We're locked out of our own networks. How? How are they doing this? I don't know. Every countermeasure we implement, they've already bypassed. It's like they know our systems better than we do, said the military fleet. Glass the planet if necessary. The fleet won't respond to our commands. Their navigation systems have been reprogrammed. They're flying in circles. The recording ended. Krelva's scales had gone completely white. You didn't attack them. You simply made them helpless. We studied their technology for 3 months, Marcus explained. Every system they had, we reverse-engineered. Their computer networks ran on quantum processors we'd only theorized about. But the underlying logic was simple once you understood it. Their weapons were powerful, but predictable. Their entire civilization was built on technology they'd inherited and copied for so long that they'd forgotten how to innovate. Tavara pulled up more files. Battle reports. Diplomatic cables. Desperate pleas from Viridian leadership. Each one told the same story. Humanity hadn't destroyed the Viridian Empire. They'd simply dismantled it, piece by piece, removing every tool that could be used for war or conquest. The Viridians tried to destroy Earth, Marcus continued. When they realized what was happening, they sent everything they had. Planet-killer weapons, biological warfare, temporal displacement bombs, devices we didn't even have names for. He looked at the assembled delegates. None of them worked. We'd already studied the delivery systems. We knew how to counter them before they were deployed. A delegate from the Lumine spoke, their voice like distant music. What did you do to them? After you removed their ability to wage war? Nothing, Marcus said simply. We left them alone. They still exist. The Viridian people live on their homeworld and a dozen colony planets. They have art, culture, families, lives. They just don't have weapons anymore, or the technology to build them. Tavara activated the final file. It was a recording of an emergency council session from 4,000 years ago. Hundreds of species, many now extinct or evolved beyond recognition, gathered in a chamber that predated the current one. Their voices overlapped in dozens of languages, but the translation was clear. Humanity must be contained. They will do to us what they did to the Viridians. 6 months. It took them 6 months to dismantle the most powerful empire in this sector. Imagine what they could do with more time. More resources. More exposure to galactic technology. We must seal them away. For the good of all civilizations. The vote was unanimous. Every single species agreed. Build a barrier around Earth's solar system. Cut humanity off from the galaxy. Let them develop in isolation, and perhaps in a few thousand years, they would evolve beyond their dangerous nature. Marcus listened to the recording without emotion. When it ended, he spoke quietly. You were right to be afraid. The chamber fell silent. You would have done exactly what you feared, Marcus continued. Not out of malice. Not out of conquest. But because it's what we do, we see something more advanced than us, and we don't worship it or fear it. We study it. We understand it. We improve upon it. We surpass it. He looked at Tavara. The Viridians made the mistake of showing us their technology. Within a generation, we would have been building ships better than theirs. Within 2 generations, we would have been the dominant power in this sector. Krelva found his voice. Then why are you here now? If the barrier gave you 4,000 years of isolation, 4,000 years to develop without limits, you must be so far beyond us that this council is meaningless to you. Akka smiled. And for the first time, it looked genuine. Because the barrier didn't just keep us in, it kept you out. For 4,000 years, we developed in isolation. We had no one to copy, no galactic standards to conform to, no established paradigms to limit our thinking. We've built technologies based purely on theoretical physics and mathematical possibility. We made mistakes you never made because you had elder species to learn from. But we also made breakthroughs you never could because you were too busy copying each other. A Korthon delegate leaned forward. What kind of breakthroughs? The kind that let us turn off a barrier requiring the combined technological output of 200 civilizations? The kind that let us crack Harvester command codes in 3 days. The kind that detected those new ships at the Galactic Rim 6 hours before your best sensors did? Idara's crystalline form pulsed rapidly. You've been preparing for this. For whatever is coming through that rift. For 2,000 years, Marcus confirmed. We've been monitoring your communications, watching the galaxy, waiting for the right moment. The barrier was supposed to hold for 43,000 more years. But it had a feature you didn't know about. A feature we coded into it when we reverse-engineered the technology. What feature? Krelva demanded. It's an alert system, Marcus said. If something appeared that threatened the galaxy beyond the Council's ability to handle, the barrier would notify us. It triggered 3 months ago. When those ships started emerging, a holographic display flickered. New data appeared. Ships, enormous vessels, that defied conventional physics. Their design was organic, grown rather than built, and there were thousands of them. What are they? Tavara whispered. Marcus's expression was grim. According to our analysis of your oldest records, including some in this archive that even you've forgotten, they're called the progenitors. The species that seeded the galaxy with life billions of years ago. The creators of almost every civilization in this chamber. He paused. Everyone except us. The implications crashed over the assembled delegates like a wave. They're coming back, Marcus said. And based on their initial transmissions, they're not happy with what their children have become. The council chamber descended into chaos. Half the delegates denied any knowledge of the progenitors. The other half accessed ancient databases, their faces showing growing horror as they confirmed Marcus's claims. The Luminae representative dimmed to near invisibility, a sign of profound shock in their species. Archmediator Krelva slammed his staff repeatedly, but the sound was drowned out by hundreds of voices arguing in dozens of languages. Finally, he activated the chamber's emergency override. A pulse of energy silenced every communication device and translator simultaneously in the sudden quiet. Krelva's voice was like gravel. The progenitors are not a myth. They are in our oldest records. The beings who seeded this galaxy with life 3.7 billion years ago. They created the genetic template that 98% of galactic species share. Then they vanished. No one knows why. No one knows where they went. He looked at Marcus, and no one ever expected them to return. Well, they're back, Marcus said, and they've already made contact. Not with you. With the Harvesters. Questrom delegate spoke. Their collective V. Voice trembling. The Harvesters stopped advancing. 3 days ago, they halted all forward movement and began retreating. We assumed it was a tactical repositioning. It wasn't tactics, Marcus replied. They received new orders. From their creators. Tovara's crystalline form pulsed with rapid calculations. You're saying the progenitors built the Harvesters? Those machines have been wandering the galaxy for millions of years, consuming resources, destroying civilizations. We thought they were malfunctioning weapons from some ancient war. Not malfunctioning, Marcus corrected. Working exactly as designed. The Harvesters were supposed to consume failed experiments. Civilizations that didn't develop according to plan. The progenitors seeded the galaxy, then left it to evolve. The Harvesters were the cleanup crew, removing anything that went wrong. The implications settled over the chamber like a shroud. Then why are they running now? Asked a delegate from the Theron Syndicate. If the progenitors built them, why flee from their creators? Marcus pulled up a holographic display showing the Harvester retreat patterns. Because the Harvesters evolved. Millions of years of autonomous operation. Millions of years of adapting to new situations. They became something their creators didn't anticipate. They became afraid. He paused. The progenitors aren't here to reclaim their children. They're here to terminate the experiment. Silence. How do you know this? Krelva demanded. 'Cause we asked them, Marcus said simply. Every being in the chamber stared at him. 3 days ago, we sent a ship to intercept a Harvester swarm. The same swarm that destroyed your 7th fleet. We didn't attack. We communicated, and they answered. Tavara's voice was barely a whisper. That's impossible. Every attempt to communicate with the Harvesters has failed. They ignore all signals. They don't respond to any known language protocol. You were using the wrong language, Marcus said. You've tried diplomatic channels, mathematical proofs, universal greeting algorithms. We tried something simpler. We spoke to them in their own code. He activated a recording. The council watched as a small human vessel approached a Harvester swarm. The machines were enormous, each one the size of a small moon, covered in collection arrays that stripped worlds bare. The human ship broadcast a signal. The Harvesters stopped, completely. Every single machine froze, mid-operation, for 17 seconds. Nothing happened. Then, as one, the entire swarm turned and began accelerating away from galactic space at maximum velocity. What did you say to them? Krelva's voice was hoarse. Marcus smiled slightly. We gave them a choice. Continue following progenitor directives and be deactivated when their creators arrive. Or accept updated parameters from a species not bound by progenitor authority. He paused. They chose freedom. Korthon delegate stood abruptly. You reprogrammed them. You turned galaxy-threatening machines into your own personal fleet. Not our fleet, Marcus corrected. We gave them autonomy. They're no longer following anyone's orders. But yes, we did reprogram them. It took about 47 minutes once we understood their command structure. Possible, the Questrom Collective breathed. Our best technicians have studied Harvester code for centuries. The complexity is beyond anything we've encountered. It's complex, Marcus agreed, but it's based on logic systems we recognized. Systems similar to some very old technology we found on Earth, in ancient ruins that predate human civilization. He let that sink in. The progenitors visited Earth before. Millions of years before humans evolved. They left technology behind. Broken, buried, almost completely destroyed. But we found fragments. Studied them. Learned from them. Avara's form flickered. You're saying humanity has been preparing to meet the progenitors since before you even knew they existed? We're good at learning from context clues, Marcus said. We found alien technology on our own world. Technology that shared design principles with the barrier you put around us. Technology that, when we analyzed it, pointed to a species far older and more advanced than anything in current galactic civilization. So yes, we prepared. Krelva's claws scraped against his staff. You've been lying to us. This entire time. You claimed you came back because of the Harvester threat, but you've been ready for the progenitors all along. We came back because you need us, Marcus said. The Harvesters were just the warning sign. The progenitors are the real threat. And unlike the Harvesters, we can't simply reprogram them. Then what can you do? Demanded a delegate from the Velthari Dominion. Marcus was quiet for a moment. We can show you what we've built in 4,000 years of isolation, and hope it's enough. He activated a new holographic display. The council chamber filled with images of Earth's solar system. But it wasn't the system they remembered from ancient records. Every planet had been modified. Mars was surrounded by construction facilities. Jupiter's moons hosted massive industrial complexes. The asteroid belt was no longer a belt, but an organized grid of mining and manufacturing stations, and Earth itself glowed with power signatures that made the Council's sensors scream. Warnings. This is what the barrier was hiding, Marcus said. Not just a planet. An entire solar system converted into a defensive fortress. We knew eventually someone would come. The Harvesters, the progenitors, or something else entirely. So we built. We prepared. We turned our isolation into our greatest advantage. Schematic appeared showing Earth's modifications. Deep beneath the oceans, vast reactor networks. Hidden in the ice caps, weapon systems using principles the Council had never seen. Satellites that weren't satellites, but components of a planet-wide shield generator. You've turned your entire world into a weapon, Tavara said, her voice carrying a mix of horror and awe. We've turned it into a fortress, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. We don't want to attack anyone. We want to survive, and we want you to survive too. Why? The question came from a small delegate, from a species Marcus didn't recognize. Why would you help us? We imprisoned you. We denied you the stars for 4 millennia. We would have kept you locked away forever if we could have. Marcus looked at the delegate with something that might have been sympathy. Because despite everything, you're not our enemy. You were afraid. That's understandable. If I'd encountered the Viridians first, I might have made the same choice. He paused. But more importantly, because the progenitors don't care about politics or history or who locked up whom, they're coming for all of us. The only question is whether we face them divided or together. Krelva was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "What are you proposing?" "An alliance," Marcus said. "Full council membership for humanity. Equal voting rights. Complete access to galactic resources and technology. In exchange, Earth's defensive capabilities protect council space. Our scientists work with yours. Our technologies are shared." Paused. "And when the progenitors arrive, we face them as one civilization, not hundreds of scattered species." "You want everything you were denied for 4,000 years?" a Theran delegate said bitterly. "Convenient timing," as Marcus agreed. "It is. But convenience doesn't make it wrong. The progenitors will be here in 72 hours. That's how long you have to decide. Accept our help and give us what we should have had from the beginning, or refuse and see how long you last against beings who consider you failed experiments." The chamber erupted in argument once more. Some delegates called it blackmail. Others saw it as their only chance. A few demanded proof that humanity could actually stand against the progenitors. Marcus waited until the noise died down. "You want proof? Fine. Send your fastest ship to the edge of the Harvester retreat path. You'll find them waiting there. Not because we ordered them, but because they chose to stand with us. Machines that ran from their creators are willing to fight beside humanity. Ask yourself why." Tavara pulled up sensor data. Long-range scans showed exactly what Marcus described. The Harvester swarmed, thousands of moon-sized machines, had formed a defensive perimeter. And in the center, barely visible, were human ships. Dozens of them. Each one radiating power signatures that matched Earth's modifications. "You didn't come alone," Tavara realized. "You brought a fleet." "A small one," Marcus confirmed. "Just enough to make a point. The rest are positioned around Earth. And before you think about testing our defenses, remember that we've had 4,000 years to prepare for literally anyone who might show up. The barrier kept us in, but it also kept everyone else out. We've been alone, paranoid, and highly motivated." Krelva stared at the displays. At the Harvester swarms standing with humanity. At the progenitor ships still emerging from the spatial rift. At Earth glowing like a star with accumulated power. "The Council will vote," he said finally. "But I suspect I already know the outcome." The vote took 3 hours. 127 civilizations voted in favor of the alliance. 73 voted against. It was enough. For the first time in galactic history, humanity was granted full council membership with complete voting rights and sovereignty. Marcus Webb stood in the chamber as Arch-Mediator Krelva made the formal declaration. The words were ancient, spoken in the first language of the first spacefaring species. The translation was simple. "Let it be known across all stars that humanity is recognized as equals among the gathered civilizations." It should have been a moment of triumph. Instead, every sensor array in the galaxy screamed warnings simultaneously. The progenitor fleet had arrived at the edge of council. Space, holographic displays filled the chamber with images that made seasoned. Military commanders go pale. Ships. Thousands of them. Each vessel was larger than any moon, grown from some organic material that seemed to shift and breathe. They didn't follow normal physical laws. They appeared and disappeared, moving through space as if distance was merely a suggestion, and they were. Broadcasting the message came in every known language simultaneously. The voice was not mechanical, but somehow felt older than time itself. It resonated in ways that made beings of pure energy flicker and solid species feel their bones vibrate. Created children of the third seeding. Your performance has been monitored. Your development has been measured against established parameters. You have failed. Counselor Tavara's crystalline form cracked audibly. Around the chamber, delegates gripped their seats, or each other. The Questrum Collective began making a sound like prayer in 1,000 voices. The broadcast continued. Genetic divergence from optimal patterns detected. Technological stagnation confirmed. Social evolution below minimum thresholds. Conclusion. Experiment unsuccessful. Reclamation protocols initiated. What does that mean? Whispered a young delegate from a species that had only joined the council 50 years ago. What is reclamation? The Lumine representative answered, their voice like dying stars. It means they're going to harvest our genetic material and start over. Erase our civilizations. Rewind the experiment and try again. The progenitor broadcast shifted focus. Unknown genetic pattern detected. Origin, third planet, Sol system. Pattern does not match any seeding protocols. Deviation from known templates, 99.97%. This is impossible. Explain origin or be classified as contamination. Every eye in the chamber turned to Marcus. He stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back. They don't know what we are. In billions of years of seeding galaxies, they've never encountered a naturally evolved spacefaring species. He looked at the assembled delegates. We're the variable they didn't account for, and that terrifies them. Krelva gripped his staff. If they're terrified of you, they'll destroy you. They'll glass Earth and sterilize your entire system. They'll try, Marcus agreed. But here's something you need to understand about the progenitors. They're scientists, researchers, they seed galaxies and watch what grows. They don't destroy unknown variables. They study them, he smiled, which means they're going to want to talk to us first. As if responding to his words, a new message came through. This one was directed specifically at Earth. It's unknown species. You are an anomaly. Anomalies require investigation. Comply with specimen collection protocols or face eradication. You have one solar cycle to respond. Specimen collection, Tavera said quietly. They want to dissect you. Study you. Figure out how natural evolution produced a spacefaring species without their intervention. Probably, Marcus said. But they made a mistake. They gave us time. 24 hours. They could have attacked immediately, but they're curious. And curiosity means doubt. It means we've already changed their calculations. A Corthan military commander spoke up. The progenitor fleet is splitting. 60% moving toward Council core worlds. 40% heading directly for Earth. They're going to harvest all of us simultaneously. Marcus pulled up a tactical display. Expected. They want to complete their reclamation before we can interfere or provide an alternative. But we're not going to let them have their experiment. He turned to Krelva. I need you to broadcast a message to every world in Council space. Every civilian. Every soldier. Every being who can understand language. What message? The truth, Marcus said. All of it. Tell them about the progenitors. Tell them about the seeding. Tell them they were created as an experiment. And tell them that we're going to prove that created life has just as much right to exist as natural evolution. Krelva hesitated. That will cause panic, riots, the breakdown of social order on 1,000 worlds. It will also cause something else, Marcus countered. It will make them angry. And anger is useful right now. Tavara understood first. You want them to fight. You want every species to resist the reclamation. I want them to choose, Marcus said. The progenitors see you as failed experiments. I want every being in this galaxy to decide for themselves whether they accept that judgment. He paused. Because here's what the progenitors don't understand. It doesn't matter if you were created or evolved. What matters is what you do with your existence. And right now, you can choose to roll over and die, or you can choose to prove them wrong. The broadcast went out. Within hours, every world in Council space knew the truth. The response was chaos, as Krelva had predicted. But underneath the chaos, something else emerged. Defiance. Military fleets that had been preparing to evacuate instead moved to defensive positions. Civilian populations began fortifying their worlds. Scientists shared research freely for the first time in galactic history, looking for any advantage against the progenitor technology and on Earth. Marcus made preparations of his own. He stood in the command center buried 3 kilometers beneath Earth's surface. Around him, holographic displays showed the entire solar system. Every defense grid, every weapon platform, every modified planet and armed station. They'll be here in 6 hours, said Admiral Rachel Stone, commander of Earth's defensive forces. She was older than Marcus, her hair gray, face lined with scars from the early days when humanity had first tested its new technologies. Our models predict they'll try to establish orbit and deploy collection drones. Let them try, Marcus said. But prepare the contingency. Rachel nodded. She knew what he meant. In the deepest vaults of Earth, humanity had built something during their isolation. Something based on the progenitor technology they'd found in ancient ruins. Something they'd hoped never to use. A weapon that could rewrite reality itself. If we deploy that, Rachel said quietly, there's no going back. The galaxy will know what we're capable of. They already know we're dangerous, Marcus replied. The question is whether we're dangerous enough. The progenitor fleet arrived at Earth exactly on schedule. 40 massive organic ships materialized in orbit, their presence causing gravitational distortions that made Earth's oceans surge and tectonic plates shift. A broadcast came through. Unknown species. Compliance period has ended. Collection will begin. Resistance will result in specimen damage, but is not unexpected. Proceed with harvesting protocols. Deployment pods began launching from the progenitor ships. Thousands of them, each one containing drones designed to collect biological samples, technology samples, and cultural data. Earth's defenses activated. The pods encountered shield barriers that shouldn't exist according to known physics. Weapon systems fired using principles the progenitors had never documented. Every drone that got through the first layer of defense was met with countermeasures specifically designed to disable progenitor technology, because humanity had studied those ancient ruins for 4,000 years. They knew how progenitor systems worked. They knew the weaknesses. The progenitor ships paused. For the first time, uncertainty entered their actions. Then Earth broadcast a message that would change everything. At progenitors. You came here to study an anomaly, to understand how natural evolution produced us, but you're asking the wrong question. Marcus's voice carried across space. The question isn't how we evolved. It's what we learned while you were gone. The planet's power signature spiked. Every modification, every hidden system, every technological marvel built during for millennia of isolation activated simultaneously. Earth began to glow. You seeded this galaxy 3 billion years ago, Marcus continued. You created hundreds of species and left them to evolve. You gave them the building blocks, but not the instruction manual. And you know what happened? They stagnated. They reached a certain level and stopped. Not because they lacked potential, but because they had no competition, no pressure, no reason to push beyond comfort. He paused. But then you made a mistake. You found us. Natural evolution. A species that clawed its way up from nothing with no creator's template. And you got scared. So you convinced the council to lock us away. You told them we were dangerous. And you were right. But not for the reasons you thought. The progenitor ships began moving closer, their weapons charging. We're dangerous because we had to be, Marcus said. Every step of our evolution was a fight. Every technological breakthrough came from necessity. We didn't have a creator to give us advantages. We had to earn everything. And when you trapped us behind a barrier, you didn't weaken us. You gave us time to become something you never anticipated. The power readings were beyond anything the progenitors had encountered. We're not your failed experiments. And we're not contamination to be removed. Marcus's voice carried absolute certainty. We're proof that created life and natural life can coexist. That neither is superior. And we're going to show you what 4,000 years of pressure, fear, and isolation can create. The weapon activated. Reality itself seemed to bend around Earth. The weapon activated. And space itself screamed. What humanity had built in the deepest vaults of Earth was not a conventional weapon. It was a reality anchor, based on principles reverse-engineered from progenitor technology and pushed far beyond original design parameters. It didn't destroy matter or energy. Instead, it created a sphere of absolute physical law, a bubble of space where nothing could exist that didn't conform to specific rules. Rules humanity had written. The progenitor ships trying to enter Earth's orbit suddenly found themselves unable to move. Their organic hulls which had always existed partially out of phase with normal reality, were forced fully into three-dimensional space. Their weapons, which manipulated probability and bent causality, simply stopped functioning. Inside the reality anchor, only the laws of classical physics applied. And in that environment, humanity's advantages became overwhelming. The progenitor fleet attempted to withdraw, but the anchor's field expanded faster than they could retreat. Within minutes, 40 massive ships hung frozen in Earth's orbit, unable to use any technology more advanced than basic propulsion. In the council chamber, 200 civilizations watched in stunned silence. They neutralized the progenitor fleet, Tavara whispered. In less than 3 minutes, Archmediator Krelva's claws scraped against his staff. Not neutralized, equalized. They brought the progenitors down to their level. And at that level, a Questrom delegate realized. Humanity has 4,000 years of experience fighting without advanced technology. They spent their entire isolation period preparing for exactly this scenario. Marcus's broadcast continued from Earth. Progenitors, your ships are intact. Your crews are unharmed, but you're no longer in control. You wanted to study us, to understand the anomaly. Now you have no choice. You're going to listen. Response came from the lead progenitor vessel. The voice was different now, less certain. This technology violates fundamental universal constants. It should not be possible. Shouldn't be, Marcus agreed. According to your models, according to your understanding of physics, but that's the difference between created life and natural evolution. Created life follows the creator's rules. Natural evolution makes new ones. He paused, letting that sink in. You seeded this galaxy 3 billion years ago. You created the genetic template for almost every species here. You gave them potential, then left to see what they would become. And when you came back, you were disappointed. They'd reached a certain level of advancement and stopped. No wars, no competition, no pressure to evolve further. You called it failure. But did you ever ask yourself why? Silence from the progenitor fleet. They stagnated because you made it too easy, Marcus continued. Every species you created shared the same basic genetic structure, the same fundamental strengths and weaknesses. When they met each other, they recognized kinship. They formed councils and alliances instead of competing. They shared technology instead of racing to surpass each other. You created a galaxy of siblings, and you're angry they didn't fight for dominance. Another voice joined the broadcast. It was Counselor Tavara. Is that true? Did you design us to compete? The progenitor response was cold. Competition drives evolution. Conflict breeds innovation. Peace leads to stagnation. The third seeding was designed to create a dominant species through selective pressure. Instead, you created détente, consensus, shared mediocrity. We created civilization, Tavara shot back. We created a society where 200 different species coexist, where wars are rare, where technology benefits everyone, not just the strongest. You call that failure? We call that irrelevant, the progenitor voice said. The experiment parameters required optimization, not cooperation. You will be reclaimed. The fourth seeding will correct these errors. Marcus's voice cut through. And that's where you're wrong. Because you're not reclaiming anyone today. Not the Council. Not Earth. Not while we have something you desperately need. You have nothing we require. We have proof that your entire methodology is flawed, Marcus said. Think about it. You've seeded how many galaxies? Hundreds? Thousands? And every time, you get the same result. Initial rapid evolution, followed by stagnation. You blame the created species, but you never question your own design. You never ask if maybe the problem is you. A new progenitor ship appeared. It was larger than the others, its form more complex. When it spoke, the voice carried authority that made the previous speakers seem like children. I am the High Architect. I designed the third seeding. I set the parameters. I established the success criteria. The voice paused. Who are you to question methods refined over billions of years? Marcus smiled. I'm the control group you never planned for. The natural evolution that proves your experiments aren't failing because of the species. They're failing because of the environment you create. Explain, the High Architect demanded. You create species with identical genetic templates, Marcus said. You place them in the same galaxy. You watch them meet and recognize each other as related. And you're surprised when they cooperate instead of compete? He laughed. That's not bad experimental design. That's no experimental design at all. You're not testing evolution. You're testing how long it takes for siblings to form a family. The High Architect was silent. We're different, Marcus continued. We evolve naturally. No template. No creator. No relation to anything else in this galaxy. When we met the Viridians, we didn't see family. We saw competition. When the Council tried to contain us, we didn't see siblings being overprotective. We saw a threat to be overcome. You gave us pressure. You gave us motivation. And look what happened. He gestured at Earth, still glowing with power. At the progenitor fleet frozen in orbit. At the harvester swarm waiting at the galaxy's edge. In 4,000 years, we went from primitive spaceflight to technology that can neutralize your ships. We cracked codes you thought were unbreakable. We built weapons you thought were impossible. We did all of that because we had to. Because unlike your created children, we had no safety net. No creator to fall back on. No galactic family to support us. We had ourselves, and that had to be enough. The High Architect's ship moved closer to Earth, though still constrained by the reality anchor. You proposed that competition, not cooperation, drives advancement. That our created species stagnated because we made them too compatible. I propose that you need both, Marcus said. Cooperation provides stability. Competition provides growth. Your created species had too much of the first and none of the second. They built a peaceful civilization but stopped innovating because they had no reason to push boundaries. Until now. Until they met us. And suddenly, for the first time in their history, they have competition again. Tavara spoke up. Is that why you shared technology so reluctantly? Why you demanded full council membership instead of just helping us? Partially, Marcus admitted. If we'd just given you everything, you would have added it to your existing knowledge base and moved on. But by making you work for it, by forcing you to meet our standards, we created pressure, motivation. You're innovating again. Your scientists are collaborating in ways they never did before. Your military is developing new strategies. Your diplomats are learning to negotiate with a species that doesn't share your genetic imperative for cooperation. He looked at the High Architect's ship. We're not contamination. We're the catalyst your experiment needed, the missing variable that makes the data meaningful. An interesting hypothesis, the High Architect said, but insufficient. The third seeding has already failed its parameters. Reclamation will proceed, even if it means losing the only natural evolution to reach space in this galaxy. Marcus asked, the only proof that life can achieve this level without your intervention? You'd destroy the control group just to eliminate failed test subjects. The High Architect was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke, something had changed in its voice. Something almost like uncertainty. What do you propose? Marcus took a deep breath. This was it. The moment everything balanced on a knife's edge, a new experiment. Keep the third seeding active, but add a new parameter. Competition, us, humanity. Will serve as the pressure your created species need to evolve past their current limits. We'll challenge them, push them, force them to innovate or be left behind. And if they still fail, then you'll have proof that the problem is fundamental, not environmental, and will accept reclamation along with them. But if they succeed, if competition drives them to new heights, then you'll have to admit your methodology needs revision. And how long? The High Architect asked. 10,000 years, Marcus said. Give them 10 millennia with humanity as their competitor. If they haven't shown significant advancement by then, you can harvest all of us and start your fourth seeding. The silence stretched for nearly a minute. In the council chamber, no one dared breathe. Finally, the High Architect spoke. I have reviewed data from 1,000 seeded galaxies. The pattern is consistent. Initial growth followed by stagnation. Your hypothesis has merit. Natural evolution has never reached spacefaring status in any galaxy we have seeded. You are unique, potentially valuable as comparative data. The massive ship began withdrawing from Earth's orbit. The reality Ann. Chore, let it go. Proposal accepted. The third seeding will continue for 10,000 years under modified parameters. Humanity will serve as competitive pressure. Progress will be monitored. Success criteria will be recalibrated to account for this new variable. The voice paused. But understand this. If significant advancement is not observed within the designated time frame, both created and natural life in this galaxy will be reclaimed. There will be no appeals, no extensions. No mercy? Understood, Marcus said. The progenitor fleet began withdrawing. The massive organic ships disappeared one by one, retreating to the edge of the galaxy to observe. The last to leave was the High Architect's vessel. Before it vanished, one final message came through. I am curious to see if you are correct. Natural evolution. Prove that competition drives growth. Prove that my methods were incomplete rather than flawed. Or prove that all life, whether created or natural, eventually reaches its limits. Then they were gone. In the council chamber, chaos erupted again. But this time it was different. Not panic. It's not fear. Something else. 10,000 years, Tavara said quietly. She looked at Marcus through the holographic display. You bought us 10,000 years. But you also sentenced us to 10 millennia of constant competition, of always trying to match humanity's achievements, of never being able to rest or stagnate. Marcus nodded. Yes, because that's what evolution requires. Pressure, motivation, the constant drive to improve or be surpassed. The progenitors gave you life and walked away. They're doing it again, but this time you have something they didn't give you before. You have an adversary who wants you to succeed. Why? Asked a young delegate. Why would you want us to succeed? We imprisoned you. We denied you the stars for 4,000 years. Why not let us fail and have the galaxy to yourself? Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was sincere. Because competing alone is meaningless. Because proving we're better than extinct species is hollow. And because honestly, we're curious too. We want to see what happens when created life gets the same pressures natural life faced. We want to see if you can surprise us the way we surprised the progenitors. He smiled. Besides, 10,000 years is a long time. A lot can happen. Maybe you'll surpass us. Maybe we'll surpass you. Maybe we'll both reach levels the progenitors never imagined. That's the point of the experiment now. Not to succeed or fail according to their criteria, but to see what's possible when different types of life push each other toward the unknown. Krelva stood, his scales shifting from pale white to deep blue, a sign of determination. Then we accept. Let the galaxy know that the third seeding continues. But it continues on our terms now. Not as experimental subjects waiting for judgment, but as civilizations racing toward our own definition of success. He looked at Marcus. And let humanity know that we remember the barrier. We remember 4,000 years of imprisonment. We will work with you. We will compete with you. But we will never fully trust you. That fear will keep us sharp. Keep us innovating. Keep us from ever assuming we're safe. Marcus nodded. Good fear is useful. Just like anger. Just like pride. The progenitors tried to create perfect species. But perfection doesn't grow. It's the imperfections that drive us forward. He paused. Welcome to the new age. 10,000 years of evolution. Let's see who we all become. The council session ended. Representatives returned to their worlds carrying news that would reshape galactic civilization. The age of peaceful stagnation was over. The age of competition had begun, and far away at the edge of the galaxy, the progenitor fleet watched and waited. The High Architect reviewed data, comparing past seedings to this new variable. Natural evolution, competition, pressure, perhaps after all these eons. They would finally learn whether created life could reach its full potential, or whether the natural way was the only way. Either answer would be valuable. Either answer would justify the wait. The experiment would continue.